So when I first saw our lineup of speakers for the summer, there were a few names that just jumped right off the page at me. And one of those is today's guest. Because when I saw the name Mike Singletary, one image came into my mind. Immediately. The eyes. I saw the eyes. You see, if you were a fan of any team that played against the Chicago Bears in the 1980s, you recall the terror that froze your heart as the television camera locked in on those eyes, as they locked in on your quarterback. And you just knew this play was not going to end well for your team. If it's true, as they say, that the eyes are the window to the soul, then I think it's probably also true to say that no man has ever played the game of football with more intensity and passion than Mike Singletary. But another thing, as I've read about him and done a little research into what he's been doing since football, his playing days, I have learned that those eyes, just as intensely as they ever were focused on an opposing player, are focused on Jesus. He has the vision. He sees things God's way because he is looking at Jesus. And in the years since his playing career, he has been a successful coach at the high school, the college, and the professional level. He's become a sought-after motivational speaker, a respected author, and he coaches others now on how to be a godly leader in the workplace and at home. God is using him in mighty ways because he has the vision, seeing Jesus. Now, we don't have cheerleaders and we don't have a tunnel for him to run through today. But we can probably make a little crowd noise to welcome 10-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, NFL Hall of Famer, Mr. Mike Singletary.
Very honored to have the opportunity to be here. And while I was thinking of what I would talk about for this morning, I thought it should be something with four to it, like 4 quarters. So I have 4 points, 4 seasons of family. And I guess as I thought about this, I guess I should start in Houston, where I grew up. I'm the last of 10 kids, and I'm also the smallest of 10 kids. That includes my sisters. Not a joke. But when I was growing up, it was interesting. You know, when the 10th child comes along, everything's pretty much set in stone. And so for me, I just kind of watched everything and all of the events that were happening in my home. And I guess when I think about our family, the first person I think of is my dad. The older I get, the more I think about him. Because when I think back on that time, my father was a Pentecostal pastor. We were in the church all the time. You know, in the Pentecostal church, you know, there is no time. All the organist has to do is hit a few notes and we're on. So that was the environment that I grew up in. But my father preached hard on Sundays, but from Monday through Saturday, it was something else that we saw as a family. And I think on that time, I saw my mom and dad fight all the time. I saw sister against brother, and it was tough growing up. It was tough trying to hold all of that together as I look back on my dad. So when I left home, you know, I could not wait to move on. Could not wait to get out of the house and see something different, experience something different. And it seemed like the further I got away from home, I really began to kind of live my life and a vision that I had as a kid. I remember at 12 years old, something very, I would say something very strong, captivating for me. At 12 years old, that was when my dad walked away from the home. And at that same year, my brother Grady, who was next to me in the family line, came back to help my mom with my sister and I. And it really looked like the family was gonna make it. You know, we were doing pretty well. Mom had got 2 jobs and pretty much working 23 hours a day for the next 2 years. And Grady was at home, he was working, and it just seemed like things were gonna work. But 6 months after my father walked away, Grady was killed in an automobile accident. And at that time, I thought, you know what, I've had it. I'm done. At 12 years old, I had made up my mind that I was done. I'm not going to try to be the best at anything. I'm not going to try to do anything special. I'm not going to try to be anything special. I'm just going to move on with my life and just somehow just stay in the middle. I'm just going to be mediocre. Because I think when you're mediocre in life, you're okay with everybody. People don't like it when you try to be the best at anything. They don't like that. They don't like it when you're the worst. But they like you when you're right there in the middle. And so I had made up my mind, but that day, my mom walked in the kitchen and she challenged me. She really changed my life. She put her hands on my forearm and she asked me if I could be the man of the house. Now, I thought to myself at that time, this is a bad decision. I mean, I got some sisters that could be the man of the house. But when I looked at her, I realized that she really believed in me. She really believed in me. I got up and I said, Mom, I can do that. And I walked in my room, and that day, after that conversation, I got out a sheet of paper and I wrote this out at 12 years old. So I want to somehow find a way to get a scholarship to go to college. I want to get my degree, in which I'd be the first in my family to do so. I want to be an All-American. Get drafted and go to the NFL. Buy my mom a house and take care of her for the rest of her life. Become an All-Pro, go to the Super Bowl, and own my own business. At 12 years old, that was my vision statement, and I wrote that out and I put it on my wall. Now, you would think that when I wrote that out and I put that on my wall, you would think that anybody that walked in the room, in my room, would see that and go, wow, this is great, Mike, this is fantastic. But that did not happen. There were those that walked in the room in the family. Who do you think you are? What is this? I mean, Mike, you're the smallest in the family. There's nothing special about you. How do you think you can do this? There were some days that I came in and I saw that on the wall, I just take it down and throw it away, only to get it and put it back up there. It became my vision. It became my boundaries. That next day, after I wrote my vision statement, I went to school, and there were 4 guys that I was hanging around with at that time, and they were not great guys. But I loved being around them because when I was around them, I was just part of a crowd. I was part of a group that kind of I allowed to identify me. There were some things that they did I did not agree with, but I did not have the strength to stand by myself. I needed them. But after I wrote my vision statement out, that next day I went to school And those 4 guys, I told them that I could no longer be their friend. I was now going in another direction. I got ridiculed. They lied on me. They laughed at me. They even wanted to jump on me. And I told them, you can do whatever you got to do, but you know what? I can't do this anymore. And I began to walk in my life, and I was moving in this direction and didn't quite understand it. All I knew was that everything that I did, I was going to give it everything I had. Sometimes at night in Houston, Texas, it can get really hot. We didn't have an air conditioner. Sometimes when you're sitting there fighting mosquitoes, I'd get up and I'd go outside and I'd just start running. And I'd run forward as fast as I could. I'd run backwards as fast as I could. I'd run sideways. And I would run until I could not run anymore. It's 12, 1 o'clock, 2 in the morning. And after I ran, I would go stand on the side of a house. There was a hill on the side of a house. And look up toward the sky and I said, Lord, one day I'm going to make it. I'm just asking that you give me the strength and the courage to do it. So, as I look back on that time, I had a chance very early on to make a decision. A decision about my life, a decision that I really didn't even know that was really that important. But it was a decision that really changed the first part of my life. At 25 years old, I'm married to my wonderful wife, Kim. The Bears had just won the Super Bowl. I was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. I just signed a new contract, and we were expecting our first child. Everybody was coming up to me saying, Mike, man, you got the world by the tail. I mean, lucky you. It's amazing what you've done. But inside, I was lonely, I was afraid, and I was angry. And I couldn't figure out why. And I'm thinking, I just began to call out to the Lord. I said, Lord, something is wrong here. I don't understand why I'm feeling this way. I don't understand why I'm so empty when I should be happy. And as I began to really pray and seek the Lord, there was something inside of me that said, you know what? You need to go back and you need to forgive your father. I'm thinking, Lord, I know in all of your majesty and all of your greatness, you can come up with something better than that. That is not something I wanted to do. I said, you know what, Dad moved on, I've moved on, just let me move on with my life. Give me something else. Mike, do you love me? Yes. Then obey me. I finally, after struggling a little bit with it, I finally said, Lord, I'll call my dad. If he doesn't answer on the first ring, I've done my job. I called my dad. He answered the phone on the first ring. Okay, Dad, this is your son, Mike, and I just want you to know that I forgive you. Now, I was expecting my dad to go, oh, son, I'm so thankful. I never thought I'd hear from you again. My dad said, forgive me for what? Son, I put clothes on your back. I put food in your belly. I put a roof over your head. What else is there? And for the next hour and a half, we screamed, we cried, and we fought on that phone. But when I hung up the phone, I knew something had changed. Not long after that, I went to Houston, and I spent a few days with my dad. I sat down and I talked with him about things that happened in our family, and he was very gracious. The wall had kind of been broken down, and he was willing to talk to me about those things. And it was amazing what I found. I found that when my dad left home, he felt about his dad a lot like I felt about him. And the more I talked to my dad, I just realized that he did not have the tools. He didn't have the tools to sit down with the family and kind of have a direction. He was kind of thrown into it, and he was kind of thrown into the ministry, and he just kind of took it, and he just kind of was thrown into being a dad, and he had 10 kids, and before he knew it, everything was going on, and he didn't know how to begin to handle it. And as I sat there and I looked at him and I listened to him and I asked him all those questions, it really helped me understand why he did what he did. Didn't make it right, but it brought some kind of closure to what I felt, the anger that I felt. I could finally move on. As I look back on that time, it was one of the greatest decisions of my life. I remember having the opportunity to be with my dad a couple of months before he passed away. Dad was very sick. He was lying down in his bed, and I asked him, I said, Dad, I want you to pray for me, because I want to be a great dad. I want to be a great husband. And Dad, I don't want to make mistakes. Will you pray for me? My dad rose up on the side of the bed, and I knelt down on my knees. And he put his hand on my head, and he began to pray for me. Began to pray that I would be strong, that I would be all that God had created me to be. That I would love my wife, and I would love my family, and I would be a man of God, a man of courage, a man of integrity. That was one of the greatest moments of my life. When I think about that, it was really a time in my life where it seemed like in that prayer, in that moment, that somehow I had the tools to begin to move forward. Now I was ready to be a parent. As Kim and I were having our first child, I just remember thinking about all of the things that I had learned, all of the things that I had had a chance to witness with my dad. And now starting our own family, it was really pretty interesting. As I think back on that time, it was a time that right after I retired from football, I began to be a consultant. And I was going around speaking to different organizations about how to come together as an organization and how to have the protocol, and this is what we were going to do. This is who we are as this company. This is what we do over here in this company. And I thought, wow, if it's important for these companies and businesses to have a vision, then we should have one for our family. So I went home one night, and the kids were sitting there, and my wife, Kim, and I said, we need to create a vision statement for our family. We need to look at who we are as Singletaries, who we are as Christians. What should this family look like? And we went around to the kids, and we just asked them questions, and we put a vision statement together. And that vision statement was fantastic because we all had a part in it. After we put it up on the wall, The kids didn't like it too much. It was a great idea. But when you had to really do what it said, it was something else. There were times, hey, you got 500 times to write that vision statement until you get it. And when they had an argument, in Chicago, it was 20 degrees, 10. They had an argument, we sent them outside. You guys walk around until you figure it out. You hold hands, come back when you figure it out, and you got a smile on your face. They came back real quick. You figured it out? Yes, sir, we got it. We love each other. But it was interesting. It was really interesting. As a dad, coming from my environment, Kim was really helpful for me. I remember watching our son as our kids begin to grow. We got seven kids. Pray for us. As our kids begin to grow, we had our oldest son. He just was in a place in his life he just couldn't do right. No matter if you told him to go straight, he was going to go left, he was going to go right, but he wasn't going straight. And I didn't know what else to do. I'm running him. He's doing jumping jacks. He's doing air raid. He's doing everything. And one day I'm outside and I about had it. The phone's ringing. Kim didn't even want to answer the phone anymore. Well, Mike, you get it. I don't want to answer the phone anymore. These teachers drive me crazy. I said, you know what? Today, it's going to be my son or it's going to be me. Something is going to happen. Something's going to break. And I ran him. We did jumping jack. We did air raid. We did belly flop. We did everything. And Kim was standing at the door watching him. And when I finished, I'm thinking to myself, got that right. And I walk in, Kim has tears in her eyes. I said, Mike, you're breaking his spirit. You are killing his spirit. This isn't working. And as a dad, you think you have all the answers, or at least you're supposed to. I knew it wasn't working, but I didn't know what else to do. Sometimes you don't really know what to do, so you just do the only thing you do know. And 9 times out of 10 is wrong. We ended up finding out that Matt had some kind of an attention deficit. And the first time I heard it, I'm thinking, attention deficit? My son doesn't have all that ADD and ADHD and all that stuff. Look, my boy is fine. He doesn't need this. But as they began to tell me what it was, they said, it's like if you turn on, if this room was just surrounded with radios and speakers, and if you turn all of them on, they're going at the same time. He said, that's what his attention span is. And I felt so small. I felt so helpless. Because raising him was about me, what I'm going to do, and how you're going to act. And I forgot for a moment that he's really God's son, and he lent him to me for a while. He trusted me with this kid. And we had to do another game plan. Kim and I had to sit down and strategize. We had to pray. And it wasn't just Matt, it was all of our kids. It seemed like it was that way with all of our kids. I remember I wrote a book called Daddy's Home at Last. And I really thought Kim and I had, we had done some of the hard work, the nuts and bolts and grassroots stuff. And I really thought, man, we've done a great job. I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it out loud. But I was pretty proud of what we were doing with our kids. And I wrote this book called Daddy's Home at Last. And I was sitting down and I was at a book signing, and this lady comes up and I'm sitting right there and she kind of picks up my book and she looks at it and she goes, you have any teenagers? I said, no, ma'am. She says, When you get teenagers, write another one. And I really thought at that time she had a problem. I said, obviously, she has problems. I don't know what her problem is. And not long after that, our daughter Kristen was 12 years old. She was just at that space. A few weeks later, I said something to her, and she went, pardon me? And I thought, I know I didn't just see that. I mean, up until 12 years old, up until that time, it was, yes, sir. Yes, Daddy. Yes, I'm Daddy's girl. Yes, sir. You know, it was great, fantastic. 13? Oh, man. I was like, whoa, something's got to give. I mean, Kim and I both were on our knees. We were praying all the time. I'm looking at the kid saying, I don't know who this kid, I don't like the kid. It was just amazing. And there's only one thing that we really had. It's just amazing that when I look at this verse, you raise a child up in the way they should go, and when they're older, they will not depart from it. Do you trust that? Do you trust what God says in His Word? And that's really the only chance that we had. You know, there's a bridge. When we raise our kids, you know, they're kids and they're running around. Okay, sit down. They got no choice. You sit down. When they get to be teenagers, you can't say sit down. But now they got a voice. And the only thing that we had was to know that we could stand on this word. We could stand on this promise. We're going to do all that we can to raise our kids up in the way that we believe God is bending them. We're doing everything that we can as parents. And after that, we got to pray and we got to trust God. We have to pray and we have to trust God. That as they're navigating their way, especially in today's time, as they're navigating their way through all of this mess, that we can trust God as we pray for them, that they will find their way back. It's like the prodigal son. We do our part and trust God to do His. When I think about those times, I just think about how much grace God has allowed me. When our kids got into the teenage years, I just remember how much we were praying. And those are really tough years. And they're tough years for most parents. And there are guys that, you know, come up to me from time to time, you know, that have kids, and they go, Mike, you know what? Man, I got to talk to you, man. My wife and I got these kids, man. They're about to run us crazy. They're doing this and they're doing that. And hold on. It's okay. You know what? One thing you got to understand is this. Once again, go back to the Word. If you said nothing to your kids, and they have the opportunity to look at you and your wife every day, every meal, every argument, every disagreement, and they saw how you and mom interacted with each other, that is something that they can catch. Teenagers don't listen very well, but they're always looking. They are always watching, trying to find holes, trying to find something that's not exactly right. And as the husband in my home, I want to make sure that my sons when they see their father, they see me being a gentleman to their mother. They see us having disagreements but finding a way to find a solution. They see how I handle setbacks and disappointments. They see when people, maybe if somebody we know, we thought was a close friend, that stabbed us in the back, how we handle those situations. Something that we thought was going to happen and it didn't happen. A parent passing away, a grandparent getting sick, all of those things. How do we handle those things? And we have to understand as parents, we are the only book that they're really reading every day. And it's a book that they're reading with their eyes. Are we, as parents, giving them a chance by not talking to them, not preaching to them, but being it? Greatest thing we can do as parents is to show them the way. When I look at the Word of God, Jesus said, all of those things that you have seen me do, all of those things that you have seen, you have heard, you have witnessed, do those things. And I believe he was talking to parents when he said that. If they can just see it, if they can just see it, and more kids are more visual than ever, if they can see how it goes, they've got a chance to get it right. When I look at some of the things that Kim and I have been able to do, it is just so amazing, some of the strategy that God has given us to be able to deal with some of the setbacks and disappointments of parenting. It's not all pretty. But as a parent, man, it's almost like you got to be a prize fighter. You got to keep coming back. You got to be resilient. You got to be persistent. And you got to stand. We got to stand. Right now in our lives, one of the greatest joys for me is to watch our kids raise their kids. It is the time not to make comparisons, not to say, you did that when you were a kid, not to say anything. Just sit there. I love watching my kids raise their kids. And many times I'm sitting there laughing. They don't know I'm laughing. They think I'm doing work. I mean, I like to sit in the kitchen and I'm reading, I'm doing something, whatever, and they're dealing with the kid. Hey, go over there and sit down, honey. Tearing up stuff, throwing stuff. I'm just sitting there. Because I remember what they said when they were kids. When I have my kids, I'm not going to treat them like this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to discipline them. I'm not going to. Really? Well, finally, they may come over and get a chair and go, Dad, how did you deal with this? Dad, how do you think I should do that? And one of the things that we have to be really careful not to do is tell them what we would do. Because that's what God gave us for them. But it's so important that we help them learn how to listen to God for themselves. How is that kid wired up? What is God telling you about this kid? What do you need to do? The worst thing that I could do as a dad was tell my son, look, you're going to do it just like me. You're going to do it. I did this, you're going to do this. No. We're all different. We're all created in his image, but we have our own lanes. And those lanes are narrow. And it's important that we don't inhibit the process. But we continue to ask God, Lord, what do you want me to tell this kid about this? What should I tell him about that? But I continue to send them back to the Lord. You pray about it, see what God comes up with. I'll be praying for you in the process as well. But I'm not going to sit here and say, you need to do this, you need to do that. No. I don't know what you need to do. But I know if you're in God, if you're in Christ, it's all going to work out just fine. That's all I know. So as I look at our country, and as I look at this flag that means so much to me, America has only been a great country for many, many years because of God being the foundation of it. And we need to know as a country, the minute that God ceases to be the foundation of this country is when we too will fall. And the only chance that we have is for the men in this country to rise and stand and not let other people, other industries tell us what a man is, what a father is, what love is, what a family is. And the only chance that we have is the Word. The only chance that we have is the Word. If we can do that, if we will stand at a time when very few are standing, and we have a chance for America to be beautiful again.